Hey kiddies, it's Triple Feature Tuesday once again, and this week we look at Dead Wives in Space. After the taxing 50-cent February, I'm going to be going back to basics and back to the beginning. Before I started making videos, I used to write these triple feature ideas up on Tumblr, so I'm going to go back and do a bunch of them as videos now, just so, you know, they're recorded for posterity. And the very first one I did, and one is still one of my absolute favorite ideas, is the Dead Wives in Space triple feature. These are three sci-fi horror movies that feature scientifically minded widowers going into space for assorted reasons and meeting up with their dead wives for reasons that range from long-awaited catharsis to a one-way trip to hell. Good time. What's fun about this triple feature is you can actually do the order of the movies two different ways. With the middle film stays in the same spot, but you can flip the first and the third one depending on your mood. I'm going to be presenting the ending on a happy note of the Dead Wives in Space triple feature, but these movies work just as well in reverse order, where they end on a much harder, more grindhousey type of note. What's neat is that the movies do go in like one direction or the other, not just in terms of optimism versus pessimism, but in presentation and themes. The order I'm going to be going in, you get a much more solid, practical examination of things, or not examination of things, but a practical series of events, whereas the movies then progress from there into more abstract, ethereal themes. Again, you can go in either direction, and honestly, it depends on the day which version of this triple feature I prefer. But our menu is going to include Event Horizon, Solaris, and The Fountain. Oh, Event Horizon. This is one of the few movies that legitimately scared the living shit out of me back in the day. I think the last one to really do that was The Ring, and oh my god, The Ring. The whole thing is that the promotional material and the marketing made it sound like there was going to be, you know, an alien on the ship. The ship has gone beyond the edges of known space, and it's brought something back. Except instead of an alien, it's hell. The ship is haunted by hell, and the ship wants to go back to hell, and it wants to take you with it. That's scary, because in a post-Hellraiser world, hell is scary again. It's just, no, never. So our widower slash scientist is Dr. Weir, played by the wonderful Sam Neill, and he designed and created the Event Horizon and sent it off. And during the time that he was making the Event Horizon, his wife committed suicide. I think the implication is she was suffering from depression and he was just not there to help her at all, and so she finally just ended it. And he's plagued by visions of her in his dreams, and as the movie progresses, by the ship itself manifesting as his dead wife and torturing him and driving him completely around the bend until he's totally on board with going back to hell. And this is the most gruesome movie on our triple feature, and just a fairly gruesome movie in general. It is just wonderful. It's happened a couple times where people didn't have any particular mood they were in, and then they just threw out, you know, why don't we just watch Event Horizon? And I always have to give them a double take, because I feel like they haven't seen the movie, so they don't know how freaky it is. But then again, sometimes they do, and they just want to do it, which means I'm hanging out with the right people. Good times, Event Horizon. Ugh. Next, we go to Steven Soderbergh's adaptation of the Stanislaw Lem novel Solaris. This would be the third time the novel had been made into a movie. The most famous one up to this point had been the Tarkovsky version, which is something like 12 hours long and, you know, just a marathon of trippy space Russianness. Whereas this one is a much more streamlined and, you know, followable film, starring George Clooney as Chris Kelvin, our psychiatrist slash widower. He was married to a stunning Natasha McElhone. He's been tasked to go to a space station orbiting the planet Solaris because they have lost contact with the people on board, including Kelvin's friend and fellow scientist, I believe his name is Jabarian. There he encounters Jeremy Davies and Viola Davis, who are having all sorts of mental issues as a result of Solaris, because Solaris is turning all of their figments of their imagination into flesh and blood reality. They take on different forms depending on the person. Unfortunately for Chris Kelvin, it's his wife, who also committed suicide. This is not a good trend. We find out through flashbacks that, once again, we have a wife that was suffering from depression, and they had issues, and unfortunately that ended with her, Rhea, that was her name, taking her life. Through the course of this movie, Kelvin, now, like, having been haunted by her memory for years, is now haunted by her physically, and is really in a bind in terms of deciding what to do. Because clearly it's not, this thing is not his wife. But isn't it his wife? You know, for all intents and purposes? Is she back? Is she back for real? Or is it just his memory of her? And if it's his memory of her, does he remember her accurately? Does anybody remember anyone accurately? Can she forgive him for what he did? Can he forgive her for what she did? It's a really, really fascinating movie. It's shot beautifully by Soderbergh with only, you know, the bare minimum of references and homages to 2001. What's fun is that there's so much of the movie that's undefined. We don't know what Solaris is there for, or what incarnation of Rhea is there for, as opposed to Event Horizon, which, you know, they are there to bring you back to hell. This could be something great, could be something bad, we don't know. It's that open-endedness that makes the movie so interesting and worth debating over and over and over again, which I do with my brother. But in the end, it's up to George Clooney's Chris Kelvin to decide what he needs to do about Solaris and his wife in space, who had been dead, but now maybe not. And finally, with The Fountain, we end on what could only be described in this triple feature as a happy ending. In Darren Aronofsky's film, Hugh Jackman and Rachel Weisz play three different versions of what could be the same characters or what might not be the same characters. The main characters, the ones that we really should be concerned with, are the middle ones. Tommy and Izzy Creo. Tommy is a brain surgeon / research scientist, and Izzy is a writer who is dying of cancer at a very young age. A way to come to terms with this is writing the story of a conquistador sent by the Queen of Spain to find the fountain of youth in South America. They are both played by Hugh Jackman and Rachel Weisz as well. And there's a third story in which what is seemingly the last man in the universe is flying a very peculiar biospheric spaceship with what could be the tree, the tree of life, or might just be a tree holding his wife's soul, into a nebula called Xibalba in hopes of revitalizing the tree and or bringing his wife back to life. Much like Solaris, a lot of things are left for the viewer to interpret, and there's no definitive answer as to what's happening, because we don't even know that the sci-fi future part is happening at all, or if it's just something that Tommy made up. The important thing, and what is a theme throughout all of these Event Horizon to the least amount, is dealing with the death of a loved one and finding a way to live with that, or in certain cases not, which would be the least healthy option. The Fountain, it's just beautiful. I really, really love this movie. And what's interesting is, considering how romantic it is, I've always found it fascinating that there is a strict demarcation between men like this movie more than women do, which it might be because the wife is dying, which is kind of sad, and she doesn't have a hell of a lot to do other than be amazing and then die. But it's romantic, right? It's shot so interestingly with the take on the future. Instead of being all metal and spaceshipy, we have this biosphere that is providing everything that the future version of Tommy seems to need with little else, and it's just flying through space, and the imagery of it is incredible. And combine this with the Clint Mansell and Kronos Quartet music, it's just a stunning movie to watch, and I never get tired of it. And whereas Solaris is much more open-ended in terms of what is happening, I believe that even though we don't know the exact sequence or actual events in the fountain, I believe Tommy does achieve some sort of peace with the fact that his wife has died and that someday he will die as well. So, you know, I say happy ending to the triple feature, but maybe the better word would be a healthy ending to this triple feature, which started with going to hell, literally, towards finding some sort of grace within oneself with the fountain. And again, you can flip these around depending on, you know, what time of year you're doing the triple feature or what sort of state you want to leave your viewers in. That's going to do it for this week. I'll see you next week with another blast from the past. I'm going to do 4 from the old just writing it down on Tumblr days, and then just, you know, periodically start bringing them back. But don't worry, I have over 13 pages of new ideas for triple features, and they're all terrible. So I'll see you next week.